stories. I am a 25-year-old male. I went to a nightclub 4 days ago in downtown with my friend and some of her friends. It was a nice warm night. I had a great time there, dancing, drinking, and all of that stuff. Didn't drink much though. Even though I'm gay, this nightclub isn't particularly a gay club, so I wasn't expecting to meet other guys. I was on the dance floor and this guy seemed to make a lot of eye contact with me. I didn't find him that attractive. He was too slim, a bit shorter than me, and very pale. In fact, I found him a bit creepy. His face, the way he looked at me. But I was curious and it caught my attention that he was watching me. Who knows, maybe he was gay, and I may like him. Some time goes by dancing with my friends. I get away from him. It was almost 6 a.m. and it was time to leave. I'm going to the bathroom when I see him just getting out of it. We almost crashed into each other. I finished my stuff, and when I was about to wash my hands, I saw him there again. He had come back to the bathroom. While washing my hands, I saw through the mirror he had his phone on his ear, like he was about to call someone. Looking down at the floor, I just washed my hands, and when I was about to leave the bathroom, he looked at me steadily. Our faces were close to each other this time. For some reason, something in his eyes, the way he looked at me, it was weird, terrifying, and intriguing at the same time. We left the club and said goodbye to my friends. Since I had wasted all of my money, I decided to go home by walking. It wouldn't be bad. It wasn't cold. This decision was my worst mistake. After walking 1 block, surprisingly, I found this guy with his friends. His friends got a taxi, and he just started walking the way I would go too. I didn't know what to do. I thought that maybe I should find another way home so he doesn't feel like I'm stalking him. I didn't want him to think that I was stalking him, but also I thought it may be funny too. Who knows? Maybe he would say hi. I suspected he was gay since he had made a lot of eye contact. I started walking, speeding a bit so that I would reach him. He was walking on the sidewalk, the one in front of mine. Then I noticed that he saw me. I didn't want to say hi or anything. I'm shy. I just tried not to look at him. I was just walking. He crossed the street. He was walking behind me now, just a few meters behind me. I just kept walking. We walked like 5 blocks when I decided to stop at a bus stop and a gas station. I wanted to know what his reaction would be to it. He just crossed again the street and looked at me. Again, the way he looked at me, it was weird. His eyes were creepy. Probably that was just the way he looked at people. Who knows? But I felt something weird. Then he turned to the left. I was just standing up and watching him get away. I wanted to know if he would turn around to watch me. He did. I did not know what to think. I decided it was time to finish this little game and just started walking my way home. I wasn't going to follow him. It was enough for me. Probably he was shy too. I continued walking straight. Finally, I turned to the left. I lost him. Then I walked 1 block more, and as I was walking, a car stopped right next to me. A man and a woman in there. She asked, "Hey yo, you got a lighter I can use?" Call me paranoid, but there was something wrong with those guys. I said no, and she replied, "How is it so that you don't have one?" It was an annoying question, so I didn't say anything and just got away. The car just moved towards downtown. Seconds later, almost 1 block distance, I saw him again. This guy was stalking me again. Then a guy riding a motorbike passed by and yelled at me, "Hey cutie, give me a kiss." At this point, I started to feel very uncomfortable. I'm not used to being catcalled, and now this guy walking towards me, he had found me. But it was too much, to the point it was creepy. I just started walking my way home and turned around to see if he was getting too close to me. I noticed he was using a cell phone. Then I turned to the right. He turns to the right too. I stopped. As I was looking for a taxi, I wanted to know his reaction. He did the same as the last time. He just crossed the street and looked at me with those psycho eyes. He turned to the left and started walking. Suddenly, the suspicious blonde guy showed up. He was just walking and looked at me, but nothing serious to worry about, actually. Then I see them again, the couple in the car, the same car that had stopped next to me and moved towards downtown. But now, they were on my way, opposite to downtown. Weird. This was the point when I was overwhelmed by the sensation. I started panicking. I just freaked out. What the fuck was going on? Why would that car change its way? Was it all just a coincidence? My instinct told me otherwise. Luckily, I saw a taxi passing by. My first move was getting the fucking taxi. I wanted to get away from there as soon as possible. I was in the taxi and saw this blonde guy sitting. He was just sitting in front of a house and watched me as I was passing by in the taxi. Why did he stop? He was walking, right? So, why is he just sitting there watching me as soon as I got in the taxi? This was suspicious, but it gets worse. The car that I had seen previously minutes ago was just right ahead of my taxi. Like, seriously, what the fuck? Why had it moved so slow? Were they stalking me too? Or was it just a coincidence? The car was moving in front of my taxi. It was like 5 blocks until I told the taxi driver to turn quickly to the left, and finally lost them. This has never happened to me before. I've gone back home by walk after nightclubs several times before. I've never been robbed or anything. If he wanted to rob me, he would have already, don't you think? After stalking me for more than 10 blocks, he had the opportunity. I arrived home in a panic. I regret not having done anything. I wish I had confronted him, or at least asked him why he was stalking me. What could that little freak have done to me anyway? But I was just overwhelmed. So, creepy guy who followed me from the nightclub, let's not meet again. This happened when I was visiting some family members in Florida. We were having dinner one night when my uncle started telling us silly stories from his youth. He mentioned going to Cassadaga with his friends a couple of times, and immediately the rest of my family started chiming in with their respective Cassadaga stories. Not being a Florida native, I asked them what the hell Cassadaga was. My uncle told me that it was a small town not too far away from where they used to live. He then told me that it has a reputation for being the psychic capital of the world, and that he and his friends would go there when they were in high school because there was a rumor that it was haunted. Being a lover of things creepy and paranormal, I immediately wanted to go, see what all the fuss was about. My uncle, being up for anything, agreed to take me. We had just finished dinner, so this was around 9 p.m. My uncle, myself, and 2 other family members got in his truck and started driving there. After about an hour of driving, we turned into a narrow gravel road. There were absolutely no lights on this road. This happened during the summer of 2016, when that whole clown craze shit was going on. So when we found ourselves in complete darkness, in the middle of nowhere, all I could think was, how some freak in a fucking clown costume was about to jump out and scare us. We passed a lot of houses as we were driving, none of which had any lights on. It was almost 11 p.m. at this point, but I found it hard to believe that no one had any lights on in their houses. It definitely added to the eerie atmosphere. We finally made it to the hotel without any clown interference, to my delight. It was the only building that had any lights on. We weren't planning on staying at the hotel. My uncle just wanted to show me around and maybe talk to the locals a bit. We parked in the tiny parking lot in front of the entrance and got out of the car. I'm not sure what compelled us to do so, but we all left our respective car doors open. We walked up to the hotel and started looking inside. The lights were on, but there was no one inside. I found this kinda odd because we were potential customers and I was expecting someone to come out and greet us. As we were all standing by the entrance, a silver car pulled up to the parking lot. It slowed down in front of us, and suddenly, a man stuck his head out the window. "You're gonna regret this," he yelled as he drove off. Not a word was exchanged between my family members and I. Within a split second, we had booked it back to the car. My uncle started driving us back to the highway so that we could get home. At this point, I'm already freaked out. So when a black SUV with garbage bags taped over the windows started tailing us, I started praying. It was in the middle of the night. There were still no lights on the small roads we were driving on, and now some madman was trying to run us off the damn road. Every time my uncle would speed up in order to avoid getting rear-ended, the guy in the black SUV would speed up too. We were driving at such an incredible speed that it only took us a couple of minutes to get to the road that connected to the highway. The SUV was still tailgating us at this point. Halfway down the road, I noticed a familiar car parked on the side of the road by a ditch. It was the silver car from before. The driver was pulling something out of the trunk as we were approaching him. Because of the speed at which we were driving, I could not see what he was getting out of it clearly. Although I didn't see what it was in his trunk, I didn't have a good feeling about it. When we finally got to the end of the road, my uncle was so desperate to get out of there that he ran a red light and turned onto the highway. The black SUV did not follow us onto the highway. We never really talked about what happened that night, and I had basically forgot all about it up until today. I am going to warn you, the story is a bit long and quite a doozy. Grab some popcorn and perk up those ears. This happened about 6 years ago. I'm 27 now. Having said that, I apologize if there are some details missing, or that I don't remember. I'd gotten out of a 3-year relationship that didn't end particularly well. I did not want to be one of those girls that made her way through a friend group, if you catch my drift. I wanted a change of scenery. I decided that I would try my luck on a dating site called Tinder. I know, terrible idea. I'm well aware of that now, but hindsight is always 20/20. In my mind, most of the dating sites are a cesspool of incels, catfish, and desperate people. To my surprise, I actually went on several decent sites. No red flags, creeper vibes, or weird feelings. Luckily, I made my mom aware of what I was doing, so whenever I'd go on a date, she'd know where I was and when I was going to be home. Mama didn't raise no idiot, right? Wrong. This is when I came across Dennis's profile. He seemed chill, kinda cute, and somewhat interesting, so I sent him a message. He was playful and had a sarcastic sense of humor, right up my alley. I decided to give him a shot. We meet at a coffee shop and had some very engaging and interesting conversations. Dennis was 5'9", normal build, balding with a reddish hair and glasses. He definitely gave off some nerd vibes. He started off by asking, "What are you looking for?" I gave my normal response. "I'm wanting someone who is sweet and caring, but also funny and intelligent." Something along those lines. Nothing groundbreaking. Cut me some slack. I was young. I realized later that giving this sort of response was the beginning of the end. Dennis and I went on a couple of more dates that were unmemorable. I started to fall head over heels for this guy fast. He was sweet, understanding, caring, empathetic. He liked to work out and took care of himself. He was everything I ever wanted in a guy. It was difficult to understand why he was single, since I was falling for him so quickly. We agreed that we would be exclusive. Everything was going smoothly until about 2 months into our relationship. That's when shit started to hit the fan. For the last month, I had been pushing him to let me hang out at his place and to meet his roommate from the suggestion of my parents, because they are smart people. Every time I'd push the subject, he'd always make up some excuse on why we can't. My roommate is crazy. It's not a good time for me. He works opposite schedules than me, etc. It was always something. At some point we had made plans to go out to a club one evening. I was all dressed and ready to go, waiting on him. He ended up not answering his phone for a couple of hours. I realized his phone must have died, since whenever I would send him messages, it would never say delivered. For those of you who are Apple users, I ended up deciding to go to his place to see if he would answer his door. I obtained his address at some point. I don't remember how. He lived about 15 minutes away from me in an apartment complex, and it was the middle of winter, February. It was fucking cold. I knocked on his door, no answer. While heading back to my car, look who decided to show up. None other than Dennis himself. And guess who he was with? Yes, you are correct. Another fucking woman. Which I later found was his long-term girlfriend, Jessica. I quickly made my way over to him. The look on his face was fucking priceless. His face deadpanned as soon as he saw me. He whispered something to the girl he was with, and she made her way inside. He came over to me and was speechless at first. "I am very surprised to see you here." "Really? We had plans, remember? I wanted to see if you were home." "Yeah, I don't remember. My phone died, so I didn't receive any of your texts, and I lost track of time. We were at a friend's birthday party." "Who's the girl?" "Oh, she's my roommate." "I thought the guy was your roommate." He was. She's my other roommate, and a very good friend." Mind you, I'm a very skeptical person, and alarm bells were definitely going off in my mind. In accordance with my parents' numerous warnings. However, Dennis is the sort of person who is very good at talking himself out of situations. His reasoning behind the decisions he makes, why he made them, etc. He was an excellent liar, and being the naive, insecure person I was, I believed him. We ended up going to the club after I waited for him outside in my car for almost an hour. I didn't think about it too much, since I was getting what I wanted and nothing was said about his girl roommate. Over the next month, I kept pushing Dennis to meet his family and his guy roommate. He eventually caved and brought me to see his mother. It was an extremely odd experience. We talked about books, and some of Dennis's friends and I made snide remarks about how Dennis's guy roommate was fucking nuts. Dennis's words. And they gave me the strangest glances. This would make more sense to me in about a month or so. Eventually I started to realize that Dennis's stories weren't adding up, and I started to see holes in his stories. He would only see me on Tuesday and Thursday evenings because he worked a lot of overtime. He would never be flexible or change his mind or even allow me to attempt to change his mind. If he was late coming to see me, which started to happen pretty frequently, he would send me screenshots of his work and his work vehicle and line waiting to get washed. Or he would send me screenshots of his bathroom saying he just wanted to freshen up. When I would ask for a picture of him in that moment of him in his bathroom mirror, he declined. He refused to send any pictures of himself, proving that he was where he claimed to be. He would also take unusually long bathroom breaks at my house after sex. I saying like 20 or more minutes long breaks. I know, another huge alarm bell. Everything came to a head about a month or so later. I told Dennis that I wanted us to go somewhere with no phone service so that we could truly spend time together without technology being a distraction. He agreed. We ended up making plans to spend 2 to 3 days in Canada. It was still early in our relationship, 4 months, and my mom wanted to make sure I was safe, so she took down Dennis's driver's license and made a copy of it, as well as his license plate. Thank you, Mom. The trip ended up relatively uneventful until the last evening in the hotel room. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or if he was actually asleep. Dennis ended up rolling over to my side, pulling me in close and saying, "I love you, Jessica." That made my blood run cold. I was so upset. Tears started to blur my vision as I got up out of the bed. My parents were right all along. He was a liar and a cheat. Did I break it off? No, of course not. That would make sense. Why? I was naive and desperately in love with him. I also didn't want to admit it to myself that I had been played or that I was the side chick. So I acted as if nothing was wrong, and I didn't even hear what he said that night. Of course, it didn't get rid of the aching feeling that I had for several weeks. I began to have bad anxiety and panic attacks on my way to school because of the bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. Dennis was constantly lying to me, and I mean constant. It was so bad that I ended up starting to feel angry. I let that feeling simmer for a couple of days until I decided to do something about it. When realizing that you were right all along and things weren't just a strange coincidence, it's very bittersweet. On a freezing March day, after an exhausting day at school, I wanted to get rid of the nagging feeling in the back of my head once and for all. I decided to head for Dennis's apartment complex to see if he was still lying to me about living in the apartments with this girl roommate. I got out of my car. I was shaking. I didn't know it was from anxiety or from anger that was starting to bubble below the surface. Was he lying about this girl roommate? You bet your sweet ass he was. I knocked on his door and hid myself from view of the peephole. He answered the door with his girl roommate behind him. I came from around the corner to look at him with an emotionless face and said, "Wow!" I turned on my heels and walked away, only to find out, as I get back to my car, that I locked myself out of my car on a cold March day in the middle of winter. I was so distracted by my rage and sadness that I didn't realize I left both my keys and my phone in my car. I'm such an idiot. I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do. I locked my phone in my car along with my keys. How the fuck can you do that? I was so angry at myself for being a fucking moron. Not only that, I was in the parking lot of my cheating ex-boyfriend's apartment complex. I wish I was making this up. I really do. With nothing else to lose, literally, I walked back to Dennis's apartment and knocked on their door. Jessica answers, and I beg to use their phone to call AAA. Jessica surprisingly agrees and let me use her phone. This entire time, Dennis is agitated and kept walking around after I got off the phone with AAA. At one point, he even went outside with a coat hanger in an attempt to unlock my door, but to no avail. During that time, I took advantage of me being alone with Jessica to get some information out of her, like how long they had been together, where did they meet. I felt as though I was an auctioneer. I was shooting 20 questions at her rapid fire before Dennis came back in. By the end of it, I had more than enough information to prove that Dennis was not who he says he was. Everything started to make sense, and puzzle pieces began connecting. One of the biggest aha moments for me was when we both were talking about being in a relationship with him on Facebook. It turns out this sly motherfucker created 2 different Facebook accounts to ensure he was in a relationship with us both, only to block the other girl on that account, guaranteeing that neither of us would come across each other or his other Facebook account. I remember in the beginning I commented on how his Facebook profile was super limited and didn't have anything on it. He claimed it was only because he used Facebook to befriend co-workers on it and didn't use it much. Anyway, near the end of our conversation, I tried convincing Jessica that Dennis was a pathological liar and didn't care about her. It was at this point I realized that Jessica could have been aware of everything that Dennis was doing and was in on it, or she was just that naive. I tried texting her after I had left their apartment to try and talk some more sense into her, but it was useless. Dennis was with her alone, and he was master at skewing and spinning stories. Unfortunately for him, I had no more trick up my sleeve. Over the course of the next week, I spent my remaining few free hours I had, if I wasn't studying or working, gathering evidence against Dennis. I did research on Dennis and Jessica through Google, but mostly Facebook. This is the scary part about Facebook. If you don't have your privacy settings on lock, I found out who Jessica's parents were and decided to send them a message through Facebook with all the evidence I have collected over the past week and a half against Dennis, ensuring that they would believe me and my story. And when I say evidence, I mean photos of him and I, screenshots of conversations we had through text, pictures of him and I, etc. All of these pictures, text, conversations having timestamps to show that he was seeing me at the same time he was seeing Jessica, hoping that they wouldn't write me off as some crazy ex-girlfriend or psycho bitch. Wishful thinking, am I right? I thought that there was something you should know. Your daughter is being lied to by her current boyfriend, Dennis. I met him on an online dating site, Tinder, and we spent the last 5 months together, but Dennis ended up lying to me about his life and everything about it. I doubt your daughter knows the extent to which she has been lied to. I feel it is only right for me to share this information I have collected with you, so that it might be brought to your daughter's attention, and so he can no longer get away with this type of behavior. Dennis is not who he says he is, or appears to be, and he has lied about many aspects of his life. Let me explain. As I stated previously, I met Dennis on Tinder, an online dating site. We dated for 5 months until I found out that he lied to me about his living conditions and the fact that he also has another girlfriend, your daughter. I have several pictures showing that Dennis and I were together as a couple. He also has several Facebook accounts. One he called a work Facebook, in which he was in a relationship with me, and another account in which he was in a relationship with your daughter. His work Facebook account no longer exists since he deleted it, but I was able to take pictures of it before it was deleted to prove what I am saying. Before continuing, I should mention that I have met your daughter twice. The first time was very brief, and Dennis told me that she was only a good friend. They had just gotten back from hanging out with some friends at Dave and Buster's house for his birthday party. This was back in early January. The second time meeting your daughter was for a longer period of time. This was at the beginning of March. I ended up going to Dennis's apartment to see if he was lying to me about still living at the apartment. He was. I ended up knocking on their door to find Dennis answer it and see your daughter standing behind him. Jessica mentioned to me about how she and Dennis have been dating for almost 4 years. I was also made aware of another Jessica he dated not too long before he started dating me. Jessica has also sent me text messages mentioning that there may be a possibility of him seeing another woman aside from your daughter and Jessica, a different Jessica. I will attach separate files with all of these photos I have collected. They will be in the order in which they are mentioned in this letter to you. I hope this information is of use to you, and I hope I was able to help in providing that Dennis is not who he says he is, and for you not to be fooled like I was. Thank you very much for your time. I did end up receiving a reply from her mother the following morning. The last time I heard from Dennis was a message he decided to leave in the grass in my backyard. It was a dead rabbit with its head cleanly cut from its body. It was clear that a human did it, since there were no sign of blood and the head was cleanly cut off. My family and I reported it to the police in case any escalation happened. Luckily, nothing did. Unfortunately, Dennis was smart enough not to take it any further, but it was clear he was very angry. He didn't want to leave any sort of trail through the internet or paper implying what he had did. Dennis, fuck you. Fuck your empty apology. I feel sorry that Jessica had to deal with your dumb ass as long as she did. You were only sad that you got caught. I hope karma plants you right on your ass. To all the ladies he has messed with, I hope you're okay, and that he hasn't dashed too much of your confidence. He's a lowlife, and that's all he'll ever be. Thank you for listening. Take care, friends, and be careful. So, I've just gotten out of a pretty significant relationship with someone of 4 years, nearly engaged and moving in together, etc. When things fell apart, I took a good amount of time to be on my own and get my shit together again. When my friends began encouraging me to get back out there Needless to say, I really wasn't wanting anything at that point, nor looking for anything, but they insisted that I at least just go out on a few casual dates for practice, just to kind of get my skills back up for when I was ready. I think they were honestly just worried because I had become quite hermetic. So I matched with this girl who's home from college for the summer. She's a little out of the way from me, but was eager to meet. Seemed really interesting, was even willing to come to my area, etc. I really wasn't all that interested, to be truthful, but my friends again encouraged this, practice, whatever the fuck that means. A date doesn't mean commitment, whatever. I want to be clear though, that I was extremely honest and explicit with her that I was not looking for anything serious or anything really at all. I was very forthcoming that I had gotten out of something serious and I was just kind of encouraged to explore. She persisted and still wanted to meet, so we agreed to a casual lunch in a sports bar that week. I get there, and she was already waiting for me. I was a bit put off by how much different she looked than her pictures. Not trying to sound shallow or anything, but her pics from Tinder easily had to be at least 5 years old, which I verified based on tattoos she had in person versus ones she didn't in pics. So I was a bit thrown off by that. I wasn't the least bit attracted to her, but I was there to just have new experiences anyway, right? No big deal. I felt bad because the entire time she seemed so incredibly shy and awkward. I even noticed her hand shaking when she reached for her glasses, which I found endearing, honestly. So I did my best to get her talking and try to help her feel more relaxed. I asked her questions and chatted about things I figured you chat about on dates. Where she grew up, music she's into, school she goes to, major, etc. All to which I literally received one-word answers. It went on like this for about an hour, and she was just not working with me at all. But I tried to keep room in my heart because it was clear she was feeling anxious, and I understood that on a personal level. Then she pulls out this book and says, "I got this for you." And I responded very grateful, thanking her and inquiring what it was about. 'Cause hey, if someone wants to share a good read with me, I'm all for that. She looks at me funny and says in a very sudden but odd tone, "You're kidding, right?" I'm very confused and just kind of look at her like, huh? And she says, "This is your favorite book. You told me this was your favorite book." To which I said, no? I've never even heard of this before. So we concluded that she ultimately got me confused with someone else she must have been chatting with, which I honestly found hilarious. She was embarrassed, but I made light of it and said I found it funny, 'cause I get it. That's Tinder culture, I guess. So as we finished lunch, and I'm still receiving one-word answers despite our funny moment, I kind of become a bit suggestive that we should conclude our date by saying I had to get back to feed my animals and do some laundries, etc. But she became very adamant on spending more time and asked if we could go do something else. I was genuinely trying to be a decent person, so I agreed, and we found a nearby park to walk. That's where shit gets weird. We sit on a park bench. Mind you, it's broad daylight. There's kids playing basketball nearby, folks jogging by. I start trying to make conversation yet again, but still get the one-word answers. Then, out of seemingly nowhere, without any warning whatsoever, she proceeds to just kiss me really aggressively, tongue and everything. I was honestly just so shocked I stood there frozen, not knowing what the fuck to do. I had this timid, shy woman who's really not made conversation with me at all, who was so nervous she visibly was shaking, just turned into a freaking bear mauling my face in like 6 seconds. My head was spinning with confusion and anxiety, and I swear, it felt like it lasted forever, and I just prayed for it to stop. I was so put off and honestly a bit afraid to do or say anything. Like, what do you even do in this situation? I was just hoping that she'd pick up on my very obvious body language, that I wasn't reciprocating anything at all. I was completely unprepared for a situation like this. Then, some really nasty guy walks by gawking and catcalling, and literally begins propositioning us into a three-way. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? I need to get out of here. I was 1,000 different types of uncomfortable. I ended up managing to ward him off after telling him very politely no more than several times. All the while she's just laughing, and I'm thinking, who even are you? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde over here? What the fuck? So he leaves, and I'm insisting now that I need to leave and go home. She seems to ignore whatever I'm saying, and gets very close to my face again and says, "Did you like that? Do you think I'm sexy? Do you want me?" When I tell you I was so fucking nervous, I was like, I really need to get home. And she was just like, "Can I come?" And I told her very firmly, no. She literally tried to persuade me to let her come back to my place with me, and I had to say no more than once, like 3 times. So finally I'm home, and frankly, just kind of shaken up. I hadn't really done the dating thing in quite a long time, but that felt very abnormal. She then texts me after she gets home and asked me out on a second date, and I was very kind despite being made incredibly uncomfortable. And I told her that I thought that she was a very cool chick and I had a nice time. Lie. But that I did not feel anything there, and reminded her I wasn't looking for anything. She then text bombed me a bunch of crazy shit, saying how she didn't understand and was so confused, that she thought I was so into her and that things went great. I did not respond to any of these because now she's continuing to cross my boundaries. I said what I needed to say, and I thought I was being decent by at least being honest. So the text continued, and I figured they were going to stop eventually because it was a first date. How can someone be so upset over someone not reciprocating on a first date? They did not stop. By reading the text, you would have probably thought that we just ended a 2-year relationship. Then she began calling, at which point I had to block her number. So nightmare Tinder girl, please, for the love of everything, let's never, ever meet again. I just came out of a relationship and felt like a bit of casual dating will be fun. So I went on to Tinder. I made it clear to a few people I actually matched with and spoke to that I did not want anything serious, just a dinner date or a pub night here and there. I matched with a really cute guy. Let's call him Pete. He had just moved to my city and also wasn't looking for anything serious. He just wanted to meet some people and see some local spots. The first night that we met up at a well-known Topaz bar, I chose this place because I had a few friends there that were waitresses and the bar staff, so I felt safe meeting a stranger here. He was on time. We had nice chats, really cool guy on first impression. We spoke about work, to which he responded that he's a software developer, but he's just starting his freelancing career. We spoke about where he stays now, that he's moved up here, and he said that he's sharing a place with some friends. Rent is quite pricey in this city, so it made sense to me. He asked where I live, and I told him that I'm lucky to even have my own bedroom apartment in quite a nice and popular part of town, mostly thanks to my parents that helped me save and gave me a portion of the deposit money for my 21st birthday, which I invested and grew into. I had enough to put down on a decent deposit. He then offered to drop me off at home, but I said no, I'd prefer to Uber home by myself. He asked if this was because I was going to meet someone else after him, and I laughed, because I genuinely thought this was a joke. The next time I saw Pete was about 3 days later. He said that he knew it was fast, but he actually couldn't stop thinking about me and he wanted to see me again. This time we met at a different restaurant, also one I chose because I went to school with the owner and knew all of the staff pretty well. The place is a little bit more pricey, and he got super annoyed with me for ordering as much as I did. I couldn't understand why, since I insisted on paying for my own stuff both times we met. That night, same story. "Let me drop you off at home, please." Again, I said no. While we were in the middle of this conversation, he gets a call. He stepped away, but I could hear a fair amount. "No, I'm not going to stay with you again. Yeah, I'm with her. Don't worry about it. Okay? I'll be home soon." So now I think he's chatting to his roommate or maybe his mom, but I don't ask. He comes back to our table. "Please, I insist. Bad things happen to women that Uber home this late by themselves. I'd feel better if I dropped you off." Not having the energy to argue, I tell him fine, and I put my address into his GPS. As soon as he got home, he messages me and tells me he'll be picking me up in the morning to go for a picnic. I reply that I actually have cleaning to do, but again he insists that he'll see me at 10. Come 10 a.m. the next morning, best believe he's right outside my apartment. I get into his car, and he leans over to kiss my cheek. I notice that his breath stinks. Obviously, I'm a little grossed out. We have our picnic, and it's quite nice. He tried to kiss me a few more times, but I avoided it with everything in me. By about 4 p.m., I tell him that I really want to go home. The park that we went to is about an hour and a half drive from my apartment, so I couldn't really Uber back home because it would cost a fortune. He agrees it's time to go, so we get in his car and we are off. I fall asleep in the car on the drive back, and when I woke up, he asked if we should finish the rest of the bubbly we got up in my apartment. I said to him that I don't want to, and he just snaps. Something along the lines of, "What were you hiding from me? Just be honest. Why are you so desperate to keep me out of your fucking apartment?" I was so confused. I actually just kept quiet. He dropped me off, but I could see his car across from my apartment for about half an hour before he actually left. About 5 minutes after he left, he let me know that he's home safe, and he thinks he's starting to fall for me. So naturally, I'm freaked the fuck out, because I made it clear that I didn't want anything serious, and he said he felt the same. I said to him, if that's the case, I think we should take a break from hanging out with each other. About 5 days later, he messages and asks if we can go to dinner again. He found an Italian cuisine place he knows I'll love. I tell him it's cool. He should just send me the address. He tells me that he'll pick me up. So 7 p.m. comes, he tells me he's downstairs, and as I go down to meet him, I see he's standing at my gate. I press the remote control to open the gate, and he walked inside to meet me. "Show me which one is yours. I'd love to see how you live." Not hi, not how are you. That's his opening line. So now, I'm naturally unsettled. I say to him that I'm starving, could we go get dinner, and I'll show you my place at a later stage. At dinner, he gets a call again. This time, he didn't step away. "I don't know. I can let you know by 10. He turns to me. "Am I sleeping by you tonight?" No, I don't know. I have to work tomorrow. Yeah, me too. Then back to the caller. I'll let you know, okay? I hear the caller respond, No, you are not. Can you just get your things, please? And do what with them? Take them to that girl you were seeing. I'm done asking you. Now, I am sitting here in absolute shock and terror. What in the fuck is going on here? Our food arrives, and we barely speak. I say to him, Why did you ask me if you can sleep over by me? We are not spending time together like that, you know this. He then spins the story about how he just wants to hang out and again, see how I live. So I then say to him, very frankly, that I don't like having strangers in my apartment. He gets very touched, and the bill arrives. As per usual, I pay for myself. He pays for himself. I say to him, I'll get an Uber home, and he says, What's the use? I already know where you fucking live. Let me drop you off. By now, I have already decided that this will be the last time I see him. I get into his car and reach for my jumper that I threw in the back when he fetched me. I notice a bag in the back of the car full of clothes and toiletries, as well as a pillow. I don't really think much of it. I don't personally drive or own my own car, but I know my sister always has the most random shit on the back seat of her own car. On the way home, he's dead quiet when suddenly he says, Do you know how much of a selfish bitch you are? I've had no issue driving you around. You don't want me to sleep over by you? I say to him that I've never had an issue with Ubering, and if he's so touched, I also have no issue with paying him what the Ubers would have cost me. I'm over this, and I'm not even playing nice anymore. His phone rings again. The caller says, Your stuff is in the security room by the gate, Pete. Stay with your girlfriend or stay with your mom. You are fucked for taking advantage of everyone like this. Pete responds, I don't speak to my mom, and you know this, you fucking bitch, and then hangs up. Now I think this may be an ex-girlfriend that he needs to collect things from. Before I have even had a chance to process what had happened, he turns to me and starts yelling at me. I have nowhere to go. Are you fucking happy, you spoiled brat? Living off of mommy and daddy's money? Getting driven around by me like I fucking work for you, bitch? My whole body got stiff with fear. I don't know if I'm going to cry or throw up. In my head, I'm just planning how I'm going to grab my bag the second he stops and run straight to the cafe under my apartment. If you run through the cafe, you can get to the gate that takes you to the back part of my apartment, and it works with fingerprint access. There wasn't time to still find my keys in my bag, but I didn't want the main gate I normally use to open wide enough for him to get in when I go in. He stops at my apartment, and as planned, I jump out, run into the cafe, run out the back, through the little gate, up to the second floor. My apartment was on the fourth floor, and I hammered on a neighbor's door. I went inside and told her and her husband everything that had happened, and asked if they would mind calling the cafe to explain why I ran through with no explanation and in such a state. I blocked Pete, and I haven't seen him since. I'm still not sure what his case was. From what I gathered, he was basically homeless, and I think he wanted to get into my apartment to maybe sleep over there for a while. I'm not sure if the girl that kept calling him was also a Tinder date that let him into her apartment and he just never left. All I know is that he scared the living daylights out of me, and I never ever want to fucking see him again.